Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another live fight production. Now, by the time you're seeing this video, Jason's been out for roughly 1 week, or 1 week exactly, and man, I have a lot of things to say about him. Jason Voorhees in Dead by Daylight is strange, really. He's not overpowered, but he's also not weak in a lot of aspects. The nerf that Behavior Interactive did for Jason's spear, aka slowing him down if you decide not to throw it, seems to be like an extremely unnecessary punishment, in my opinion. At this point in time, I probably have around 7 to 10 hours playing him, both on and off stream. And I gotta say, Jason just feels like one of those killers who doesn't necessarily suck, but feels like he sucks due to 1,000 minuscule things, right? One thing I'm going to focus on primarily is the spear. Jason's spear, for those of you who don't know, isn't actually centered in the middle of the screen, right? If you put on a crosshair and throw it, it's going to be slightly to the upper left, and this would explain why so many spears have either A, missed, or B, hit, and they just feel like they should have either hit or missed entirely, and yet they sometimes do the opposite. Another strange thing about the spears, there's outside of add-ons that give the spears special effects if you hit or if you miss, right? If you hit a survivor, they basically become your terrorists. It's kind of like a built-in Dark Devotion, right? If you hit a survivor in the exit gate, they get stuck to the wall. They won't be able to leave for a few seconds, right? Outside of these add-ons, it doesn't really feel like there's anything to improve the spear gameplay, right? There's not an add-on to reduce the amount of time it takes to aim the spear. There are no add-ons that increase the speed of a spear. There's no add-ons to reduce the penalty of missing a spear, right? The slowdown from it. And when you begin to understand this, Jason starts to feel more like a worse huntress with her eerie add-on, right? He begins to feel more like a one-shot huntress that doesn't have an insta-down. Using the spear while in chase is extremely map dependent on whether or not it will or won't be easy. Certain maps like Macmillan Estate are absolutely horrible unless you're in the dead center middle of the map. There's just rocks and trees and massive scrap piles just cluttered all over the place. So in maps like these, you really don't have too much of a time window, realistic one anyway, to land good projectile hits, whereas on maps like the game, although it is an indoor map, the amount of clutter that is in it, although it's pretty high, it's typically pretty low to the ground, which allows you as Jason to basically maneuver around loops and have full control over them, even if you don't have a completely clear line of sight, right? It allows for some really good trick shots, allows for some last-second spikes. Now, all that being said, I do think Behavior should either revert the spear nerf entirely or only partially, because the thing is, on the PTB, I'm not sure if it's just because the survivors were bad or what, but Jason on the PTB, although he didn't feel extremely overpowered, if you were good enough, you could just land almost every single spear shot easily, right? On the PTB, it took maybe a quarter of a second to aim, and when you threw a spear, it went right where you were aiming 9 out of 10 times, almost instantly. Whereas on live, it feels more like I'm throwing bricks, right? I'm not sure if they messed with the spear speed, but it does truly feel way slower than it was in the PTB. Maybe I'm just coping. Probably. Who knows? But another thing I want to talk about is Jason's Omnipresent Evil. Now, although this wasn't nerfed, people have been begging for a time limit to be put on Jason's Omnipresent Evil power. And I'm going to be telling you why that is probably one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Jason's Omnipresent Evil power can be countered entirely by simply pressing and holding control, or if you're on console, the crouch button, and walking around while crouched. That's it. And the same can be said for his spear too, right? Like, if you have urban evasion and you're just crouching around, it's going to be really, really hard for Jason to land spear shots on a consistent basis. and it's also going to make you very, very hard to locate, especially if you're playing in a super passive playstyle. And a really big reason why a lot of people want Jason's Omnipresent Evil to have a timer for some reason is because there have been stalemates, and this has happened to me too, I think 4 or 5 times now, where at the very end of the game, you manage to close the hatch before the last survivor finds it, right? And what happens is, you activate your Omnipresent Evil, the endgame collapse timer is going on, and you as Jason are just going back and forth between the gate, waiting for the survivor to get on the gate, right? And people are saying this should result in him being nerfed, when in reality, I don't think that's fair at all. I think him being nerfed in this way doesn't make any sense because the counterplay to his power is way too strong already. If Jason has a timer added to his Omnipresent Evil mode, then it should be buffed as well. If we're going to be adding a timer to Omnipresent Evil, then he needs to be able to see Killer Instinct when he's within 3 or 4 meters of a survivor, right? The same way the Spirit does, because just blanket nerfing a killer for one reason like that, it completely affects the rest of the way all games work, right? This is something that really irritates me, and how everyone's knee-jerk reaction to Jason having quote-unquote infinite power time is to just nerf it, right? Like, we don't have to nerf a killer's power all because everyone is just refusing to get on gens and basically play the game, right? No one wants to be chased, no one wants to be injured. That's on you, right? Ultimately, Jason's speed is another thing that a lot of people talk about, and I have talked about extensively on the channel. A 4.4 killer who's basically 4.6 every time he teleports. That's whatever. I personally feel he would be better if he was 4.6 after throwing a spear, and then 4.4 when he, grabbed another one. That's just something more similar to Springtrap, which, I don't know. It'd probably have to be tested. I really don't think it'd be that overpowered, personally. But to really just drive the point home, Jason is an extremely B-tier B killer. He really is. He's not bad. He's not good. And he suffers from all the same things a solid B-tier killer does. That being, if you go against total noobs, you're gonna stomp them. And vice versa, if you go against a 4-man comp Swift who has basically every second chance perk under the sun, you're going to have a very, very hard time beating those guys unless they are constantly messing up and basically handing you the win, right? There have been many instances in my Jason games where I'm either completely destroying the enemy team, or I'm being completely bullied the entire time and end up getting maybe 1 or sometimes even 0 kills, right? So really, this is why I think this whole spear nerf because his zoning was too effective is bullcrap, really. If a killer across the board can't manage to perform really well against a 4-man Swift, again, maybe this is just some kind of skill issue, but this isn't just Jason who's affected by this. This is really just any killer under Nurse and Blight, in all honesty. If a killer can't manage to get at least a tie consistently against a full 4-man with comms, it's a little hint to what the next video is going to be about a little bit, then the killer just fundamentally needs something more to help them out, in my humble opinion. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Am I coping? Am I seething? Am I wrong on every single topic? I have no idea. Let me know what you think down below. Regardless, I hope you all like the video and or subscribe. My friends, take care. God bless. Peace.